Hello, thank you for contacting Wave Support. So in this design, you noted this patient has a pterygium. In this case, just for example, probably looks like it's over here on this temporal side, but it can be either nasal or temporal. The same idea should apply. So basically you want to somehow not rub in that area. So if you look at the design, in a traditional lens design, we rely on the landing zone, that area between the blue and the pink. That general area, red to pink, is kind of landing area for the lens to position itself. But in this case, if you're trying to keep that area up clear of that pterygium, you won't have a whole lot of stability as far as where the lens sits on the eye. So, and just a couple thoughts, if you're trying to raise up the side that's over the pterygium, but you have a little bit of a downturner as you might have in this design, and by the way, this is the third most recent design according to the ones that you sent in. But if you look at this downturn on this side, if you have a little extra clearance on this temporal end, but more of a bearing on the nasal side, the lens will have a tendency to want to equilibrate the alignment on either side. So when you're wearing this with the lid interactions, this area where you have the more nasal bearing will tend to push off that side of the lens will tend to push off that side of the cornea, and you'll lose your raised edge over at this end. So you'll lose your clearance on this temporal side, but you'll get a little less bearing on this side just as that lens tries to even itself out. So one of the things I find sometimes helpful in these cases is to try to get as much of the lens itself aligned with that cornea across the central part. Of course, trying to not bear it too much, but if you can get as much alignment through that center part, that might give you a little more leeway to play with the clearance in these outer parts. So in this case, what I might do is work on trying to get better alignment through the middle part. So you can do that. You're already in free form. You could just hit tools and redesign. Sometimes what I'll do to try to get as much alignment through there, I may put a little aspheric design to this. So just to kind of show you what might happen, if I put a little bit using that S factor, and then hit redesign using tools, current settings, you'll see this lens redesigns and tries to very closely align the entire center part of this lens with the cornea. So now that you have this, if you look at your design, you have a pretty closely aligned lens through all meridians. Now, because it's pretty snug, you want to increase the clearance in the outer part. So we're going to first look at this nasal section. I've got the radial at 3 o'clock. So you look at this nasal center. Obviously, you have some bearing here, so you want to bring this up a little higher. In general, that brings up all the way around. Now, you mentioned about doing just 25% or one meridian in one area. So what you can do is click on in the upper right-hand corner in this quadrant control area, you've got 100%. Just click on that, change it to 25%. And now if you're looking at just this meridian, you're looking at the 3 o'clock radial, and now I'm going to click over to the 9 o'clock where you got that pterygium over here. So we're now looking at the temporal portion of the design, and I want to get this up a little higher. So I'm going to raise this up quite a bit more, just get it up closer to that pink line. That might get you quite a bit of clearance on that side. And then if I go back over to the nasal side, I don't have as much, so I'm going to bring this up also a little bit higher. So what I've tried to do in this design is keep a lens that's pretty well aligned through the middle part, a little more edge clearance if I can, but I've exaggerated that a little bit more in this 180 meridian. Now the hope is that you keep a much more aligned lens through the center part between the two blue dots all the way across the middle, and then you have enough clearance to keep some tear exchange underneath, and hopefully that'll get that off the pterygium. And then in this design, you're likely to have more of an even lid interaction, keep that clearance through there. So basically, if you're trying to raise it in one meridian, you might recall the 25 is only in the single radial, and since you're in free form, you have to go back and do the opposite side as well. If you want 50% to that entire side, you can go 50%, and that wouldn't do that entire side. So now if we look at this temporal meridian once again, if I want to raise the entire side a little bit more, now if I raise that a bit, it'll raise all the points basically from 8 o'clock all the way through 10 o'clock. That whole area will raise up. So you might have to work a little bit with that design, but hopefully that'll give you some insights and a way to address clearing some corneal irregularities in this case. I wish you well. Thank you for contacting Wave Support, and have a great day.